Today, I'm going to invite you to start thinking and acting like a forest scientist, to see beyond the trees in the landscape, to think about the right tree in the right place. Because when we do that, we start to balance nature, economy, and science. Here in the Southern Cape, we live where the trees meet the sea. The yellow woods, the stink woods in the valleys, pine plantations managed on the slopes, fynbos on the slopes, and wattle trees also on the slopes, but unmanaged. From a distance, they all look the same, tall, green, alive, but they are different. We know there is a difference. We've watched streams slow down when catchments are invaded by some trees. We've also watched sawmills close down, furniture shops close down, livelihoods get impacted when plantations are removed from a landscape. So, what does this say? It is not just about trees. It is about how we live with trees wisely. Between forest and fynbos and landscapes and the planet, that does not actually count trees, but it counts function, water, soil, biodiversity, sociology, economics, and everything else. So you might be saying, why does this matter to me? Maybe you don't work in forestry or in conservation or in science. And you're thinking, well, it's just about trees. But I am here to say, the choices we make about trees shape our water, our jobs, the types of economies we have, and actually, they keep the ecosystems in balance. I can maybe just remind you of how great tree systems are. In recent years, we've been celebrating them as carbon stores, our solution to climate change. But they are more than that. They cool the air, they regulate the catchments, and trees actually are running how the energy flows on our planet are. In Europe, for example, 60 billion cubic meters of water is circulated on that continent because of tree systems. The Amazon, one of the most famous forest, I would say, makes half of its rainfall. In the Congo Basin, closer to home, trees actually breathe moisture into the air and influence the rainfall patterns. More south, where we sit, trees also compete for this water. They sometimes will dry up the catchments. So it is just a tree, but it is actually impacting what is happening. And that brings me to my point on this is where local science matters. Because when we hear trees, it's either we decide to say, well, we must plant more trees, or we also say we must take out the acacia cyclops, for those of you that know some species that are choking our catchments. But it is about realizing which one is the right tree in the right place. And I've got a story of some studies we did in the Southern Cape. And we looked at different tree species. Pine species, which are used to actually grow in plantations and provide timber and carbon and fiber. We also looked at indigenous species in the Southern Cape. The Otaniqua yellowwood, the most famous one of them, I would say, Podocarpus latifolius. If you can walk out of this talk with just that species name, I've done my job. Podocarpus latifolius. We also looked at stinkwood, which is Ocotea bullata. It's a natural species in this area. The most expensive timber you can buy. If you have a stinkwood table, you're good for your kids' future. And Cape Holly. But what did we actually measure? We looked at how much water is each tree drinking on an hourly basis. We escalated that to a month, and we escalated that to a year. We did that over many years, but I've averaged it now in the graph you see to just an average of a year. And this is what we found out. The pine tree, we particularly measured the radiata one. that tree will drink up much more water in the same hour than the yellowwood would do. At the same time, the pine tree will give you much more grams of timber than the yellowwood would do. So it is about trade-offs. Do you want water or do you want timber? A pine tree sitting in the river is going to drink a lot of water, but it would not give you the timber that is equating to that much amount of water. A yellowwood sitting in the river will drink less water and actually help you recharge your catchments. So you don't want the pine tree in the river. You want to place it in the right place so that it can give you the ecosystem service of carbon because it's the best at doing that. But you don't want to place it where it's going to impact your catchment. So if you look at water use efficiency, that's what that graph also said. From a grams of timber per liter of water, the pine is a winner, and the foresters will say yes. But if you look at efficiency from keeping the catchment functional, the pine is not a winner. The yellowwood is a winner. But do we need the pine? Yes, so that we can actually have a renewable resource fiber-fed industry called forestry. Do we also need the yellowwood, the ilex mitis, and the stinkwood? Yes, because those trees in the right places will always work with the catchments to recharge our catchments. So context, when it comes to trees, defines impact. And today, that's the paradox I want you to walk out with. If you look at a tree, is it in the right place? A wattle tree along the Garden Route Dam, for example, where we are. Is it giving us timber? No, it is just sucking up the water. A wattle tree or a pine tree in a well-managed plantation which is certified, which allows you to have a milk box that is renewable, that is not going to cause microplastics in the sea. It is the right tree in the right place. So when I was preparing for this, I thought, how do I say this? And I thought, okay, the 5 B's of choosing the right tree in the right place. And they come as the first one, belonging. Belonging, I say, is this tree supposed to be there? Not every tree must be indigenous, but every tree must be thought about in purpose and intent, in design that fits the soil, that fits the rainfall regime, and that fits the needs of why we have that tree there. The second one is before. And before says when we plant trees or when we clear trees, because we also do that in forestry, are we doing that for a past picture, memory, or is it actually to have something that we can sustain into the future? The third one is benefits. Who is this tree benefiting? Is it water? Is it jobs? Is it the economy? And we can actually have that balance. The fourth one is boundaries. Because now that we understand of the right tree in the right place, we will now need to think about buffers. We need to think about fire breaks. We need to think about ensuring we don't have a high dense biomass tree in a fynbos area that is going to be a fire risk because it is the wrong tree in the wrong place. And the fifth B is behavior, because these decisions about tree systems have to do with people too, with communities. The planet always thinks through function. Ecology without economics will fail the people. And economics without ecology will fail the planet. So everything we've talked about now, planting, clearing, is about trade-offs. That's how foresters and forest scientists think. And congratulations, you are now going to think like a forest scientist when you walk and look at the trees. And those trade-offs could be, how do we keep our catchments functional? Is that our main objective? So then we must clear catchments that are invaded by trees that drink up a lot of water. It could be, do we want to support an industry that supports the green economy? So we must have certified tree systems. It could be, do we want to grow gardens that have got trees that give us shade, that give us beauty, and that give us a sense of place where we are? Then we choose the right tree for that. And every action of that should come with intent, and it should come with design. So each one of us has a role. It could be joining clearing efforts to actually clean up the catchments. It could be planting the right tree in the right place. Or it could be giving your time, your money, your knowledge that you got from TEDx 2025 about what is the right tree in the right place and educating others around you. Because in the end, the story of trees is the story of us. Thank you.